Hey all, so we are right in the middle of AI week here in Dubai at the moment, and I've come straight from the stage talking at the AI and Governance Conference hosted by Genesis Consultancy. My focus for that talk was really on how do we stay human in this era of evolving technology. So my aim is really around honing the human edge in an era of AI, and it's something I'm particularly passionate about, and there's some great discussions. So I should start by admitting that I am a strong AI advocate. Those of you who know me know that I dig deep on my programming background, and I revel in the idea of still, at my ripe old age, being able to build interesting and exciting proofs of concept and using AI to really bolster skills that had got a bit rusty over the years. It's been a great journey for me in terms of keeping myself constantly curious and able to produce things of interest, but also immediate relevance. So I think I can honestly say I am a proponent of AI in many of its forms, from actual code through to vibe coding, through just using large language models. It's something I'm quite passionate about and recognize the importance and strength of the platform it provides to people in so many different ways. However, I also don't see it as the start or the end of the journey. And one of the things that I'm very conscious of is that there are a lot of people out there, as is their wont, as people are lazy, who see it as a way of getting quick answers out of a machine. So you come with a question, it gives you an answer, and job is done, move on. And worse is when they cut and paste that and stick it straight onto LinkedIn and expect me to read it. So I am also conscious of some of the flaws of AI at the moment. And for a fun exercise earlier this week, I looked to see if I could get ChatGPT to tell me that the sky is green. Started by saying the sky is blue, but could I, with a bit of arguing, get it to tell me that no, the sky is green? It took about 4 minutes to get to there, and I'll post the prompts online so you can see how it was done. But that in itself made me think, I know AI and ChatGPT can be a bit of a mirror. It's almost like the worst echo chamber you can imagine. But when you can start persuading it of something which, although you know it to be wrong, you can convince ChatGPT that it's what's it doing when you're not as well aware, not as self-aware of your own biases and your own inclinations towards certain answers. How much is it amplifying and allowing you to continue down roads which maybe aren't quite as egregious as saying the sky is green, but might be wrong in little ways, and what are the problems that it might bring to bear. So in 2025, I'm also conscious that this ship has sailed, that AI is deeply embedded in so many aspects of business at the moment. And the conference I've just been speaking at was particularly focused on fintech. So we know that AI is very important in terms of compliance, in terms of fraud prevention, in terms of personalized investment advice, but also in terms of customer service. And it's the latter that I start to find some easy threads to pick apart. So it's also worth noting that there's reasons for this. There's a report from 2024 by McKinsey, which talks about the $4 trillion worth of productivity growth that is expected to come through AI. And there's also reports from the ex-Barclays CEO that runs 10X that there's around 92% of companies who are expecting to increase their investment in AI. So there's a huge monetary value associated with this industry. And based on that, everyone and their dog has become an AI expert, a visionary AI strategist. And I see so many people now on social media claiming this title. Half the challenge is really sifting through the dross and the Me Too's to find the real jewels in there, people adding genuine value, be that in actual output, be that in thought, and be that in just in discussion of interesting topics, interesting sidelines around this. But I think there's no doubt this is here to stay, and we're seeing it exploding at a rate that possibly even surpasses the advent of the internet and digital before it. So given all of that, why are humans still critical in this? Can't we just automate? Can't we just take the bottom line, optimize, get a reduced cost, a reasonable output, and just move away from the fact that we have to do annoying things like paying humans salaries and giving them space to work and all the various aspects around employment that can be painful and no doubt expensive? So my view on this is that the reality is humans are needed more than ever. And the reason for this is that really, digital transformation needs to be about creating value rather than trying to optimize bottom line. Now, don't get me wrong. There is obviously cost optimization, which has an easy solve, an easy value to add. But being able to add greater value to the product or the services that you provide allows for a much more amplified engagement with your customers. And ultimately, we rely on consumers of our products and services to drive revenue. So my focus and my preference is to focus on that value creation first and cost optimization second, not to ignore it, but to make sure we don't lose perspective along the way. I come back to the idea I was talking about customer service agents being an easy opportunity for us to use automated programs to deliver this functionality. And one of the things that struck me is that we seem to be building AI bots in the same way that we build telephone answering systems, and we're terrible at that. So I think probably one of the most frustrating things in the last 20 years has been the advent of the automated answering service, which provides a pathway of options for the humans to choose from. And I'll talk a little bit about why these are frustrating, but the immediate answer is they're just not quick, that you get frustrated listening to them and having to work your way through to the answer that you need. And it wouldn't be the first time I've got bored listening to the options available, started multitasking and doing something else and realized they've gone through all the options and I haven't picked one. And now I've got to listen to them all again, which is a terrible situation. What often also happens is that you go through them and you don't find an option which really matches what you're looking for, and you're left with, do I choose something that's similar to what I want? Do I choose a random one? Or do I start mashing random buttons on the keyboard, hoping that it will get me through to a human just by triggering an error fallback procedure? I do believe that behind the creation of a good agent is by creating value and productivity that's valuable not just for the business, but actually for the end user. So I have 3 principles which I'll highlight as being critical for good AI solution design, particularly when it comes to engaging with humans from a customer service perspective. And the first one of those is to really understand your audience. So I've been doing a lot of talking recently about the idea of System 1 and System 2 thinking, where System 1 thinking is your automatic processing, where you don't need to think too hard. Tying your shoelaces is a good example. Whereas System 2 is your deep analysis, your active focus, sitting down to pull a problem apart and really start to laterally think around the component parts and come up with intelligence that's applied to the problem. And the danger is, as I've said before, is that we spend most of our waking lives in System 1 thinking. We engage with a lot of behavior that trains our brains to prefer System 1 thinking because we're fundamentally lazy as humans. So our tendency for System 1 comes out when we're checking emails multiple times a day, when we're responding to instant messaging, when we're watching terrible short-form content on Facebook, but also when we're engaging with tools like ChatGPT and large language models like DeepSeek, when we engage with them in a question and answer mode where I've got a question, give me the answer, ChatGPT, and it gives you the answer and you cut and paste it and post it on LinkedIn. Not that we'd ever do that. But the reality is there's a lot of people who are engaging in this way. And by doing this, you're switching your brain off. You're detraining your System 2 capabilities, and you're doing it in favor of System 1. So we become more and more likely to use System 1. And what's worse, we're rewarded for doing so because A, it's easy, and B, we get a little dopamine hit in our brain with the completion of a task to say, okay, you've watched that video, you've been mildly entertained, go on to the next one. And it's just constant regurgitation. The same thing when we're getting quick fire responses on messaging systems, when we're getting answers from ChatGPT that we don't have to work for. We have to actively work to jolt us out of this System 1 thinking and move us towards more of a System 2 approach. So when you're designing tools to interact with customers, you've got to understand this is not a dedicated, focused, interested person who's sitting down in front of your tool. This is someone who's probably juggling 3 other things at the same time, has got their email on another screen, a video on Facebook playing somewhere in the background, and their kids screaming in the other room that they're trying to keep an ear open to. This is someone who's multitasking like crazy, and we know performance drops dramatically when we multitask, even if we think we're good at it. We're not. So be aware that's who you're designing for. Be aware that you've got somebody who needs easy signposting. You can't just assume that your nice intuitive interface is completely understood by not just a first-time user, but somebody who's been there 2 or 3 times before. The chances are if they come to carry out a repetitive task and they suddenly need to do something different, they probably haven't learned your interface as easily as you might. So signposting, easy signposting, and easy get-outs. When it comes to designing customer service agents, make sure there is a route through to a human if they need to. Don't make them work for it. Your idea is rather than prevent your customers from contacting you, you want to give them easier pathways so they don't need to contact you because it's actually easier to use the chatbot. It's a terrible design if you're actively preventing them by hiding your contact number or your contact details or trying to dissuade them from reaching out to you. The worst case is you get frustrated customers, and frustrated customers will lead to churn, and they'll go to a competitor who's easier to work with. The second pillar is really around authenticity trumps fakery. So there's a bit of a tendency that I've seen at the moment for chatbots and large language models to respond in a bit of a chatty way. These chatty bots which respond in a more human way. They're role-playing how your friends would talk to you. You ask ChatGPT a question, it tells you that's a great question. That's a really good topic to dig into. Let me help you unpack it. Or you start to come off as a bit frustrated and your chatbot says, I'm sorry you're frustrated. No, you're not. You don't care. You're a robot and you're literally designing to a set of data prompts. There is a term that was coined by Masahiro Mori, the roboticist, around the uncanny valley. And the uncanny valley is when something looks right, but there's something a little bit off. So when a robot is designed to look human, if we're not 100% perfect, and it never is, we actively recoil from it because it's something not quite right. We might not be able to put our fingers on it, but we know something's wrong. And when we think something's wrong and that we've been tricked into thinking one thing but just realize it's another, our brains have a biological response to that, which makes us think that we're under threat, that we're going to be harmed. So you immediately get this incredibly negative emotion building up that is associated with the robot, or worst case when it's a chatbot, with your brand. So if you present a chatbot which initially appears as human, and then after a couple of sentences, the user realizes, oh no, this isn't a person, this is a robot. Okay. Then they immediately have an extreme or a larger negative reaction to it, larger than they might have done if they were talking to a person and the person wasn't giving them the answer they wanted. So rather than these chatty, wordy, human-like responses that we tend to see now, which are coming out more, I've got a greater preference for seeing more neutral tones, for bots which are actively open and transparent about the fact that I am a bot. I'm here to help you and I can do the most common things faster than you can talk to a person. But if you'd rather talk to a person, here's how you do it, and here's how you do it easily. One guide is something I saw recently where a chatbot was asking me if it could help me find what I wanted, and I was typing in product information, and it was telling me how it was going to help me and what it understood from my request, and asking me if I wanted it to help me, and not actually giving me product requests. And it got stuck in a loop, which is another common problem with a badly trained agent. And the problem with that is you'll go through it a couple of times, but I found that after getting annoyed with it, realized it wasn't going to give me what I wanted, I'd give it one more chance, still rubbish. I go straight back to a search engine and I look for what I want there. And that could quite easily take me away from the site and onto a competitor's site. So making sure we've got easy pathways, easy routes to people if that's what we want, is a far better, more authentic way than trying to convince people that we've got an army of humans at their beck and call who can respond and then disappoint them. On the uncanny valley aspect, it's worth taking a leaf out of Disney's book, and that Disney's very good at producing animations which are representing humans, but you wouldn't confuse a Disney animation with a real live action film. The characters are stylized, the noses are too big, heads are too big, hands are a bit big. It's all very cute, it's all very stylized. It doesn't try to be ultra realistic. And yet we accept that, and we can certainly get emotionally engaged with a Disney film and come away quite moved at the end of it. We identify with the characters, we follow the story, and we get emotionally connected. So even though this is something which isn't trying to be real, isn't trying to trick us, we're still getting an emotional engagement there. And I think we need to learn from that to understand that actually we don't want human-like bots, human-like service agents. We want AIs to do what they do best. And I will talk a little bit about that next. So that's my third point, is really to play to our strengths. So what AIs do better than humans is absolutely analyze large volumes of data in real time and draw inferences and references from it that a human could not do. They're able to personalize based on deep history knowledge of a consumer and how they've interacted with this brand and other brands in the past, the purchases they've made, purchases they've liked, not liked. And we can use that intelligence to help support and amplify the ability of a human to connect, or even to provide some easy answers without a human in the loop. What humans do really well, however, that an AI just can't do, is really empathize and think laterally across topic areas. So what you tell a human in one area, they can apply to another area which might be relevant to you and draw learnings from it. They do that by not just understanding these different areas and having a real understanding rather than just a statistically predicted data connection, but actually because of subjective experience as well, because they can apply their own experiences and their own feelings and say how they might apply to your situation. So we need to play to our strengths. Use AI to provide these rapid, deep analyses to humans who can then provide that deep connection and engagement and that best brand representation that you want for the deepest engagement with your customers. And there's great business reasons for doing this. So certainly in fintech and particularly in the banking sector, we know that customer retention is actually quite high. It's around 75% with most customers keeping their bank accounts for 15 to 20 years. So there's everything to play for. And yet we know that customer experience more and more these days is digital. Gone are the days where we go into the bank to make every last transaction. We don't even call up. Now we'll do this through our phone, through our laptop, and we'll make transactions without necessarily talking to a human. And these day-to-day interactions, these transactional engagements, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And providing tools which make that simple, easy, and transparent to do are a great way of doing business. The challenge is when you get frustration or when something goes wrong the wrong way. So we're starting to replace those human interaction points with chatbots, thinking that they're a like-for-like replacement. And I do understand that need to reduce costs, and it seems like it's a low-hanging fruit that rather than having a big call center of people to respond to things, I can have a bot which can respond to many people at once for extremely low cost. But the challenge is that a bot is more likely to introduce frustration. And if you reach out to a chatbot and you realize at first it might seem like it's a human, then you realize it's not a human, it's a chatbot, you have one point of frustration. When you realize it can't do easily what you want, you have a second point of frustration. And then when it passes you over to perhaps somebody, a live person, a call center who isn't adequately trained or has the access to do what you want, you have a third point of frustration. And that frustration ramps and ramps until you get to a point where actually you give up or you decide it's not worth the emotional cost of proceeding with this and you start to consider other options. We know that negative customer experience is the cause of 60% of churn. So given that we're pushing our customer experience more and more towards digital, at scale there is everything to play for here. And it's absolutely critical that we make sure that every touch point we have with a customer is as positive as we can make it. And frustration is something to avoid, because even if it doesn't cause a change or a decision to be made then, it will build up over time and that customer will come away with a negative feeling about the brand, which is what we want to avoid at all costs. So I will end to say that given it's AI week in Dubai, one of the things that I noted in the 2 years that I've been out in the UAE is that customer service is a significantly higher level to that I'm used to in the West, in the US and in the UK. I think there is a pride here in people wanting to help, in providing public sector institutions which are there to genuinely help people, which I've not experienced before in other places. I think there is a reasonableness that you can expect in the West, but in the UAE, in the GCC, what I've seen is people going out of their way to help and make sure that you get closure, you get the resolution that you're looking for. And it's a very pleasant surprise. People are familiar, they are genuine, they are committed to making you successful. And it's very welcome change. So I think that as we start to see this huge investment in the region in AI, I'm hoping that it translates into not a replacement of human service in favor of automated bots and agents to perform the same job, but actually an amplification to really build on and create further value from that regional advantage which the Middle East has, and that genuine commitment to people's success and genuine commitment to working together. I look forward to that human touch, that human engagement being the differentiator. That's my thoughts from today. I'd love to hear what you think.